Hello, Bob Wells here, and welcome back again to the Undercurrent Stories podcast. Got a fantastic interview today. It was a few weeks ago with Martyn Ware. Martyn, who formed Human League and Heaven 17. Great interview. You'll hear lots about Martyn's growing up in Sheffield. He talks about the formation of the bands. We talk about some of the music that inspired him. And to top it all, Heaven 17 are actually doing a tour in November, which I'm hoping to go to, the Sound of Vision tour. And they've got a new single out, There's Something About You. Their first single, in fact, for about 10 years. I first heard Martyn on podcasts. Electronically Yours is his podcast, where he interviews lots of people in the music industry. He's got a natural ability to be able to talk to people and get information out. And his new podcast, the Sound Power podcast, he goes into a bit of detail about it, but that's a really exciting one. So you'll hear more about that. Got a great book out, autobiography, which I've read, which is very good. That's also called Electronically Yours. And we hear about Martyn's work as a producer, a lecturer. There's so much more to the man than what you may think. So I really hope you enjoy this podcast to hear the one and only Martyn Ware. Thanks ever so much for coming on.
It's all right. My pleasure.
Yeah, I feel as though I know you, because I've been listening to your podcast probably over the last, 4 or 5 months. It's one of my favourite podcasts. I mean, I think what it is, I think because you're in the music industry, well, first of all, you've got a natural ability to be able to talk to people and get them to talk. But I think probably a lot of the musicians and the people that are in the music industry that you interview trust you immediately.
Yeah, and well, I mean, I've been doing it 45 years, and the music industry is a small place. People, generally people understand who are doing things for the right reason, and anybody who isn't doing things for the right reason, some of them are very successful. Most people in the music industry are nice, but they are known, So if I just emerged out of nowhere, and I just wouldn't get the guess, to be honest. So, it's quite flattering and a nice thing to do, And I started doing it to help my mental health, really, I suppose, because I'm kind of hyperactive. I have to be doing creative stuff all the time. So, so there you go.
Could you just tell us a bit about your background, growing up in Sheffield, and what were your earliest influences and why you decided that music was for you, please?
So we started now?
Yeah, we have, yeah.
Oh, yeah, good. Wow, big question. Okay, so at school, it was basic stuff. Came from a poor family, went to the best grammar school in Sheffield. And it was there that I met Phil Oakey, whose dad became head postmaster at Sheffield. He moved from Leicester, and he joined the fourth form. And we became instantly very close friends. And he had his family life was weird. I mean, it was like I don't think I ever met his parents, but we used to have this lovely house, detached house in a posh part of Sheffield. And we used to have big house parties there, and it's where I lost my virginity. It's where I smoked dope for the first time. It was a dream, really. It was like living in LA or something. And his musical taste really had a big influence on me. But at this time, I had no idea he was going to be a musician. Neither of us did. And then I started my first job, which was as a trainee manager at the Co-op in Sheffield. And the first day on the job, I met my friend, who's my longest lasting friend now, and best friend, Paul Bauer, who used to be in a band called 2.3. And it was just at the kind of inception of punk, really.
Yeah.
And we would, actually pre-punk, what am I talking about? And we realised we had very similar tastes in music, and we became instantly very good friends. And he introduced me to a thing called Meat Whistle, which was like a drama youth club in Sheffield, where people from every conceivable type of background would go and mix, which is a really healthy thing, I think.
Yeah.
And that's where I met Glenn and Ian.
Oh, okay.
And for years, I'd say 2 or 3 years, it was nominally a drama club, but really we were messing about with pretend bands and just not with any ambition whatsoever or thought that you could ever be in a band. Because in Sheffield, there were only big venues. We went to the City Hall and watched, kind of Emerson, Lake and Palmer and King Crimson and that level of bands. And they all had giant stacks of equipment, and it just seemed like a completely unattainable thing. Plus, none of us were trained in music. So it just seemed it wasn't even on the agenda. So anyway, messing about, getting a bit cheekier, getting a bit more confident. And then one day we were asked, some friends of ours asked us if we would put a band together to perform at the Sheffield Arts College on Salter Lane. I'm going, what? Glenn had sung in some daft kind of pretend bands, and I'd played a stylophone in a pretend band and all of that. So anyway, we got this band together, and it was me and Glenn, Ian Marsh, Chris Watson, and Richard Kirk, and Mal from Cabaret Voltaire, and 2 members of 2.3, Paul Bauer and the drummer, Hayden Boys Weston. And I always joke that it's like we were the first band to be a supergroup before we were ever a group, And we were supporting a band called The Drones from Manchester.
Yeah.
So this was really early in punk, 76 perhaps.
Yeah. And did you consider yourself a punk band?
So, we were just messing about.
Right.
We didn't consider ourselves anything, really. No. This was just, it was more like almost like a, what was it? It was more like a conceptual art.
Oh, right.
Actually.
Yeah.
It was like performance art.
Yeah.
So, because we had one rehearsal, 2 hours long, and we said, what the hell are we going to do? None of us could read music. We'd never been in a band before, apart from the Cabs, obviously, 2.3. But me and Glenn hadn't, proper ones. They said, all right, what do we like? We all like Iggy Pop. We'll do Cock in My Pocket, which is easy. And what do we like? Oh, Doctor Who. We'll do the Doctor Who theme.
Right. Early electronic sort of start there.
Yeah, not electronic. It was a bit electronic, but mainly it was just Glenn thrashing away on a 1-string bass and a bit of guitar. And anyway, so we did this, and then we were so terrible that the manager of the Drones came on halfway through the set, which is only like 15 minutes anyway, and said, could you stop now? Because the Drones want to come on now. So the song transmuted into the Drones want to come on now. The Drones come on now. Which, of course, our arty friends in the audience quite liked. So it's all part of this kind of bit of backstory. There was a band in the early days of Meat Whistle called Musical Vomit, which did perform for the general public. Glenn was the lead singer. Ian Reddington, our friend, the actor, was also in the band. Paul was in the band, Paul Bauer. So it had more in common with Musical Vomit than anything else. Anyway, we came off stage to minimal applause, and then I thought that was it, and it's funny. So then we stayed to watch the Drones, who was also supported by Slaughter and the Dogs. Slaughter and the Dogs were terrible. And then the Drones, who were headliners, were even worse.
Oh, right.
And there was like a light bulb moment going, I think we were no worse than them. And they got record contracts. Anyway, cut a long story short, shortly after that, we got a rehearsal room and we recorded a very, very basic track called Being Boiled, which my friend Paul sent up to his record company, Fast Records, in Edinburgh on a cassette. Bob Lass loved it, said, we want to put it out. I went, God, this was the top of Everest.
I was going to say that happened very quickly, didn't it?
Yeah. Getting a piece of vinyl out seemed like an unattainable thing, because it was just the start, really, of proper independent record labels. Yes. So we went, oh, right. And then, but because we were this kind of arty collective almost, we insisted on designing our own sleeve, doing our own publicity, doing flyers. We'd already been doing fanzines in Sheffield. So we had this kind of punk do-it-yourself ethos. So everything, even from the very, very basic earliest stage, was all about this integrated approach to, like a conceptual art project. Yeah. Sounds very pretentious, but we didn't give.
No, exactly. Probably you wanted to wind a few people up with that whole concept, I guess.
Yeah, it was like kind of, we thought we were electro-punk, basically.
I listened to the guy from Cabaret Voltaire, one of your early ones, and it was a similar type of thing, wasn't it? A similar vibe.
Well, they were our inspiration.
Yeah.
And mentors, really. We didn't want to be like them,
But the idea of the art as well, so the Warhol thing.
Yeah, I mean, they were more in that kind of throbbing gristle direction. It was a bit too dark for us. We wanted to make some kind of hybridized pop, rock, proto-punk stuff. Yeah. But electro.
That time in the 70s was very interesting. I was into T-Rex and Bowie, and I never saw T-Rex, sadly. I never saw Bowie.
I saw them at City Hall, Electric Warrior tour. Yeah, when Mark Bolan split his pants and his bollocks were hanging out. Yeah.
Is that a story you'd like to share?
Well, his bollocks were hanging out
of his trousers.
Pants. What more is there to say? I thought it was they were joke shop testicles at first. They looked so unreal. Yeah. But no, they clearly weren't, because he had to go off stage for like 5 minutes, change his trousers.
Yeah, what a band to see live, though. I mean, I saw the film.
Still in the top 3 of gigs that I've ever seen in my life.
Really?
It was so exciting.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, so this would have been 71, I guess, would it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ish. Yeah.
Screaming girls.
Screaming everybody. Really? I mean, the guy was just a star, wasn't he? In none of this too cool for school stuff. He was, if you forgive the pun, he left everything all out there on the stage.
I mean, I was obsessed by a number of groups. So I came from the sort of T-Rex, Bowie. I went to see the first band I ever saw was the sensational Alex Harvey band. And
brilliant.
Yeah, and I was. You've seen them live as well, have you? Yeah, brilliant. Zal Clemenson. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic! I'd never seen anything like them, because parts of them were kind of naughty pub rock type stuff, and parts of them sounded like a film soundtrack.
I know. Yeah.
That's what I loved about them. Faith Healer was epic.
Yeah, and you had that throbbing bit at the beginning of the Faith Healer as well, didn't you? Which I guess ticked the electronic box.
Oh, well, we used to dance to it at a club called the Penthouse, actually, in Sheffield, which was a mixture of glam, a lot of Bowie, a lot of kind of, glam acts, but also things like Alice Cooper and Alex Harvey and other more kind of, they call it alternative 80s or 70s now.
How did the actual Human League itself start?
Well, we had a band called The Future with Addy Newton who went on to form Clock DVA. It's a very funny story, but it's too long for this. We did some demos in Sheffield for the first time on 4-track.
Oh, yeah.
And we were so pleased with them because they sounded really out there. I mean, bear in mind, at this time, we were listening to a lot of strange stuff. I mean, things like the Faust tapes and, you know, a lot of krautrock from that period. And we thought, we can't possibly be weirder than that. But, you know, we're basically trying to form an identity. So we created 4 tracks, and they sounded like film sound, a bit like kind of minimalist film soundtracks, but with Addy kind of mumbling over the top, various readings from J.G. Ballard and also anyway. So we took I sent some invites out done on computer printed paper, which I used to work as a computer operator by this time. So I sweet talked the punch card girls into letting me program this thing up and do it. No personal computer at that time. No. And amazingly, we got. I sent out 22 invites from a book I got from the Central Library of Record Companies in London, and we got 12. Yes, please, we'll do this.
That's pretty good, isn't it?
Amazing. Yeah. We couldn't believe it. We thought we might get 2 or 3. We didn't, and the key to it, I think, was the fact we didn't send them a tape.
Oh, right.
It was just this curious invite saying, are you interested in the future? Do you want to hear the future? And obviously they look at it and go, yeah, what have we got to lose? So anyway, we went down to London, 2 days with 6 meetings a day. The first day, they all hated it. I mean, without exception, it was just not what they were looking for, and basically most of them cut the appointments short, chucked us out. Don't darken our doors again. But the second day, so we were a bit depressed the first evening, as you can imagine. First time we've been to London, we were staying with our friends in London, and the second day, so we didn't hold out much hope for the second day, but 2 of the remaining 6 appointments were Virgin and Island Records. And they both, not only were they nice, but they kind of got what we were aiming at rather than the actual end product. So they sat us down, you know, really made us feel welcome. Both of them, they both said the same thing. Go away and try and write some real songs. The reason why I mentioned Faust is because nothing on their album sounded like real songs. So we didn't think we had to. And that was a kind of epiphanal moment for us. So we went back, me and Ian had a chat and thought, we love Addy. We've been friends since the start of Meat Whistle. I'm afraid it's not going to work with Addy because he can't sing, right? So we can't write songs. So we had to break it to him. He took it in good grace. We're still really good friends now. Good. And then we were looking for a lead singer. We started writing some more song-type stuff, me and Ian. And I said, well, I've got my mate from school, Phil Oakey, my best mate. I have literally no idea if he can sing. I've never heard him sing or even hum. But he's got a fantastic hairdo and he looks like a star.
Did he have the long one side?
Yeah. One side. Yeah. Veronica Lake look. And so we said, what we got to lose? Because we weren't part of the musical scene in Sheffield. We didn't know any musicians apart from Cabaret Voltaire. We were really kind of outsiders, you know. So we said, all right, well, you know, beggars can't be choosers. Let's bring him down, see if he likes it, number one. So we gave him a cassette of it to take away. He liked it. Said, can you go away and try and write a tune and some lyrics to this? And he brought it back and then said, you know, brought it back a couple of days later. Said, we put the tape on, said, okay, do you want to sing along and show us what you've done? And he got his lyric out and he went, listen to the voice of Buddha saying, stop your staring. I'm going, what the hell are you talking about, Phil? And Ian said, I don't know what it is, but I like it. You've got the job. So from that minute, we recorded his vocal onto it. That's what we sent up to Edinburgh to Bob Last. And
Bob Last was the A&R guy for Virgin.
Yeah, well, he was the only person at Fast Records. Right. It was a hobby, more or less. He was an architect, trainee architect. Right. And anyway, but he loved music, And next thing you know, it's, as you mentioned, it was kind of championed by John Peel, who was the kingmaker, really, at that point. And next thing you know, we're getting offers from record. Bob Last was getting calls to his office saying, we'd like to sign this act, right? Yeah. So there were various record companies who were interested. There was, obviously Virgin was one of them. There was EMI. I think CBS at the time was there, yeah. And then there was the very early first couple of weeks of Fiction Records with Chris Parry, and he took us into his office, which had no furniture, which wasn't a good start. Sat us down on the floor and said, "Have a listen to this." And he played "Killing an Arab" by The Cure.
Oh yeah,
and we looked at each other and went, this really isn't what we're all about. I don't think this. He was a lovely guy, and he was very keen. I said, it's not really our thing, that kind of dark guitar rock thing. But Virgin were really keen, so we signed to Virgin.
There's a lot I'd like to talk about, Martyn, and I suspect that talking about the history of the music part of it is you get asked all the time. There's a lot of the stuff I'd like to. So I'll try and keep it as brief as possible, and then we can talk about some other stuff. Is that okay? I won't put this bit in. But,
I'll leave everything in my podcast.
Well, you do, and one note you make is that it adds a bit of colour. The Amazon driver coming, and
Amazon driver coming, or dogs barking. Yeah. You do get interrupted all the time.
Yeah. Perhaps if we go back to Heaven 17 a bit later on, one thing, just going back to the Sheffield thing, one thing I find very interesting is having listened to your Electronically Yours podcast and the beginning of your new one, Sound Power. And sort of had a look at some of the guests you've had. There's a huge amount of, and I was a bit ignorant about it, a huge amount of electronic bands that came out of Sheffield and the North in general.
Yeah. I think we influenced some of them. It's a very interesting thing. I've been asked, obviously, this question and analysed it a lot for my autobiography as well. So I'm well rehearsed in my answers, but my response to it kind of evolves over time. I think it's to do with the nature of Sheffield. So it's a friendly town. There's a bit of kind of rebellious spirit in there. There was also plenty of places to rehearse in ex engineering shops and stuff like that for virtually no money. So everybody could pretend to be in a band. There's also a kind of in the DNA love of craft and technology, which is to do with the, obviously the steelworking industry and engineering in general. And so electronic music kind of, I look back on it now, kind of fits the bill.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's something about that town in particular. Why did it not evolve in Manchester? Why did it not evolve in Liverpool?
Yeah.
Liverpool had different things. It was a port that changes the nature of it. A lot of people from different backgrounds. It wasn't so focused, although they've got a rebellious nature as well. Manchester was more guitars all the time. The Black Country was all about heavy metal. Newcastle, I don't know, really. They were more like heavy metal as well. And but interestingly, electronic music evolved in outside a kind of satellite towns as well, like Basildon, uh, places, little hotspots around the country.
Yeah.
So it wasn't all about growing up in this famous post-industrial
No.
town. It also evolved in garages in suburbia.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the answer is, but it seems that growing up with the sound of engineering going on all the time, which I thought everywhere sounded like that when I was growing up, might have had something.
Bit like Gary Newman when he was talking about lying under the in his grand's garden, watching and listening to the aircraft come over. No wonder he made some, and he was talking about how he was more interested in sounds than, in quotes, music.
Yeah, in a part of town called Attercliffe, which is where most of the huge factories, steel manufacturing was. I mean, that's the sound was drop forges, which was like infrasound, very, very deep, boomy sound, which would travel down the valleys into the centre of Sheffield. So we'd hear that on a still night and stuff like that. So it wasn't all just about grinding and kind of finishing sounds. It was also about big, kind of Wagnerian sounds.
Yeah. The way that you compose music, I mean, you're the first to say that you're not really a keyboard player. You're not a pianist.
I'm definitely not. I mean, I struggle.
Do you? I mean, have you ever tried to sort of? I'm not necessarily read music, but sort of, just play a keyboard or a piano in a traditional way. Do you do any of that at all?
I play live. I mean, that's not a problem. Yeah. But it's not something I'm passionate about. I mean, I don't. Right. So I've got a story. So when we were touring with the Early Human League in the back of a white van,
yeah,
laying on mattresses, got no money at all. We were being driven around by a friend of ours who was a friend of Bob Lass. And he was like our tour manager, and he had studied at the Royal College of Music. And we used to talk to him, and he used to say to us, I wish I could unlearn what I've learned.
Sorry, you wish he could unlearn what he's learned?
He wish he could unlearn what he'd learned at the Royal College of Music.
Yeah.
He was like a grade 2, grade 1 pianist. Because he could not think down to the level of what we were doing, which is using like monophonic synths and composing intuitively.
Mm.
And the same is true when I'm obviously winding on quite a long way, but when I moved into the top level of record production and you get to work with orchestras, I would get frustrated with orchestras. I mean, they are the most amazing thing. I've got total respect for their talent. But if I was to say to them in the control room, the end of chorus 2, I'd like you all to improvise for 8 bars, they wouldn't know where to start.
Mm.
They literally wouldn't have a clue. Now, that's changed in the last 30 or 40 years. I think there's a lot more people who have switched on to the new way of making music. But back then, these were all players who were earning pin money from doing pop sessions, albeit extremely brilliantly performed. But they were people who could accurately reproduce the intention of the people who wrote the manuscript. So I got told several times by different arrangers who would conduct the orchestra in the studio, talk to me in the headphones, don't talk to them. Mm. And I will interpret your wishes into a language they understand, which usually involved having to alter the manuscript because they couldn't get out of the habit of reproducing the manuscript, right? Mm. That neuroplasticity route had been sealed.
Right. Yeah.
As a skill for decades, right? Yeah. So it's interesting, isn't it? to go back to what my friend said, that made me believe that the last thing I should do is learn traditional compositional technique, or even technique to play in a fluent manner. I don't want to be a jazz player. I'm not interested. If a chord sounds good, it sounds good. I don't even really know what it's called. I remember being astonished when back in the 80s, there used to be quite a big business in publishing books of manuscript for people who wanted to. This is before the internet and everything, or it might be in 70s, 80s, anyway, early 80s. They, of manuscripts of different pop songs for like bands in pubs and stuff. And I remember looking at something, I think it was Crushed by the Wheels of Industry, and it was Hem 17, and it was in like the key of 6 sharps or something. And I'm going, I'm a genius, and I didn't know it all this time. Of course, I've been in this business as a producer and a writer and performer for 45 years now, so I have picked up a certain amount of technique, but and knowledge. So I can speak their language now, in other words.
Yeah. I know where you're coming from. I had classical guitar lessons when I was about 13. I did a couple of years of them, but it got to the point where my guitar teacher said to me, he said, "You're not really reading the music, are you, Bob?" And I said, "Well, no, I'm not really. I'm just remembering what I did." And so I got to the point where I'd had enough of it, and then I got into the electric guitar and Bolan and, Marshall Hundreds and stuff like that. But it's interesting. I mean, a guitarist myself, I've often found when I've been playing in bands that it's very easy, and you've probably heard it, you can play in the pentatonics, and you just twiddle your fingers. But actually, when you say to us, right, stop doing that, just hear it first, and then just play something, it sounds a lot better.
Play chromatically.
Pardon?
Yeah. Playing a chromatic scale. I went, oh, what?
Yeah.
What?
I know.
Yeah. Let alone, the quarter tone bends and all that stuff,
Yeah. Great book.
Thank you.
I've read I'm halfway through the very end of it. You go through some really interesting notes about the songs themselves quite extensively. Yeah. So I'm halfway through that, but I have read the whole thing. So I've read the history of the change from Human League to Heaven 17 and BEF. We probably haven't got time to go into it at all, but I suppose what we could do is if we just talk about the change from Human League to Heaven 17 and how you felt about that, and looking back in hindsight, what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I mean, in hindsight, I'm still upset with Phil because he colluded to throw me out of the band, essentially. But from a Bob Last and record company point of view, they could see that. I always try and see both sides of an argument. Over the years, I've become a bit more mellow and gone, well, they invested relatively large amount of money in the band, and it wasn't growing fast. The sales weren't growing fast enough for them.
Yeah.
Although they were growing, they might not have made their money back for a long time. Plus, all sorts of cogs are whirring in the background that the bands aren't privy to, but the managers are, and etc.
Yeah.
And the cogs in this case is the fact that I think, and this is based on what I've read from Branson's book and stuff like that the kind of windfall of the money from Tubular Bells, which a lot of it had to be spent, or else they'd end up paying a lot of money in corporation tax and stuff. So they were reinvesting into new bands and stuff, and that kind of optimism started to fall apart a bit on a general level. They were not generating as much money as they'd hoped, and in fact, at one point, it looked like they were going to be in a massive cash flow hole and have to sell shares, which they didn't want to do, to refinance the company. And it wasn't really until Culture Club and Phil Collins and us started and having major success that they came out of that dip and got back into them.
Yeah.
thing. And the Human League as well, of course, and this version 2.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of financial pressure at that point on the record company, and also in a Machiavellian way. I mean, you've got to bear in mind that Bob Last's confidant and hero was Malcolm McLaren, who was Machiavelli incarnate, and so they came up with this plan to throw me out of the band and create 2 bands for the price of 1, basically. Suggests that me and Ian, well, actually me initially, and then Ian came with me on the actual meeting.
Yeah, that was interesting how he sort of he was loyal in that respect.
And then suggested that we devoted our time to the studio and creating different band identities and stuff.
Yeah,
Heaven 17 was the first one. And obviously it started taking up all our time because, to service a band that's flying, you've got to devote all your efforts to it. So that is how it happened. And but it was nevertheless incredibly. I mean, if you ever have anything of that level of betrayal happen to you once in your life, I think you're unlucky. Because I got him into the band in the first place.
Yeah, and you were best mates just before all that.
And best mates all the way through. Yeah. We'd have disagreements creatively, but there was no inkling whatsoever of it all.
Mm.
And it was the classic Faustian deal, that he did. But there you go. Can't have it all. No. And we kissed and made up since then, but it's still, he's still hard to contact and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
but
we all move on.
Well, we do, and look at the success that Heaven 17 had. Live Aid recording for Christmas and all that.
Very proud of what we've done.
Yeah.
Historically, I think the stuff that we've created, I'm proud of, and also the BF album.
Yeah, and probably I was going to talk about the BF, but before I do, probably a lot of people don't know the extent of work that you've done with other artists, and I'm thinking in particular of helping resurrect Tina Turner's career by producing that song.
She was on the BF album, Music Quality and Distinction Volume 1.
Yeah.
At that time, she didn't have a record contract. It's hard to believe, but so she was, in Hollywood terminology, cold. She couldn't. Nobody worldwide was interested in signing her on any level. They thought her career was over. She was 40, which in pop years is 140. And they just thought they're not going to make the money back. It's that simple. So anyway, we did a cover version of Ball of Confusion with nearly got in the top 40. It was clear that she was highly motivated to rectify the waste of what she perceived as like a couple of decades, really, I suppose. And then she got signed, and then they came back to us, asked us, Heaven 17, if we'd write a couple of songs for Private Dancer. And we were in the middle of making Luxury Gap at the time, and we simply didn't have the time to do that and do it justice. Yeah. So we said, but we can fit in doing a couple of cover versions. And so I drew up a short list and went to see her. By this time, Ian wasn't part of BEF. He'd backed away from it. So it was just me. Went to see her, and top of my list was Let's Stay Together. I thought, before you move on to whatever you're going to do next in your career, there are 2 things. This is what I said to her. In my view, as an enormous fan, I mean, River Deep Mountain High is one of my top 5 singles of all time. Is firstly, you need to appeal to a new audience. So you need a new production style. It needs to sound more modern. Forget how old you are, it doesn't matter. We can create a different frame for the picture. And secondly, people need, even though you don't feel a connection with soul music anymore, you can't ignore the fact that you are one of the world's great soul singers, really. Soul stroke rock. Yeah. So before you move away from that, you should acknowledge your talent and nail your legacy by doing a classic soul song, And bear in mind, how old was I at the time? 25, 26, 27. You know, I mean, I'm a confident person with no justification, largely. But I was full of, I felt the power that something was happening. And I actually just said to her, we can definitely make this a hit by approaching it with like programmed drums, synthesizers, but keeping some of the original DNA of the song there with things like baritone sax and anyway. And she, of course, her performance was for the ages.
And I think you say in the book, on that particular song, she did it in one take.
Yeah, absolutely one
Amazing.
take. She said, "Do you want to do another one for insurance purposes?" And I said, "Can I, if you want." I mean, literally, she was in the studio. We did everything without her there.
Right.
She turned up at the studio. I said, "Do you want a cup of tea?" She said, "No, I'm all right. Let's just get on with it." 5 minutes later, she's in the studio. This is 10 minutes after she's arrived. Run the tape. That's the take. No drop-ins, nothing. And what's clear, and what I mean, I've done quite a lot of education at, as a kind of lecturer at MA level, songwriting and production. And what I say to my students is, absorb the meaning of the lyrics of the song and then interpret it. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be worldly wise. You don't have to do it for 30 years. You can do it straight out of the box. And one exercise that we used to do was to say to them, look at the song you've written. Okay, now you got the backing track. I want you to recite the song in tempo and everything, and expression. I just read it out with no tune.
What, the lyrics?
The lyrics. Yeah. And if by the end of that exercise it sounds wrong, then you've not written a good song. That's my view on it anyway. And because what I learned from working with Tina is she used to not only practice the song so she could sing it, but she understood how she wanted to connect to you as an individual, a person in a room listening to a hi-fi system or on the radio, one-on-one. That's all that matters. You're not projecting to an enormous audience at a rock concert. It's an intimate experience.
Yeah. It's a bit like a podcast, isn't it? You're talking to the person you're listening to, who's listening to it.
Yeah.
So did she that thing that you said about Tina there, how she would understand the song and make it so that it fitted the ears of a particular person? Was that something you discussed with her, or was it just something you learned that she did?
Well, part of the skill of a record producer, certainly back in those days, everybody calls themselves record producers now.
Yeah, I'm a record producer. I've got Ableton Live.
Yeah, no, but seriously, DJs call themselves record producers. And everybody's a producer now, so the term has been devalued. Yeah. But back in the day, a large part of your skill was obviously getting the best performance out of the person at the other side of the glass. And that involves quite a lot of empathy, but also kind of psychological analysis and subtle, well-meaning manipulation, shall we say. Because even to be honest, Tina's one of the only singers I've ever worked with lots, who's never ever tried to make an excuse for not performing properly. But an awful lot of even very experienced singers will go, "Oh yeah, I've got a bit of a sore throat today. I've been gargling with honey and lemon," and it's like, "Oh yeah, no, I didn't sleep properly last." It's just insecurity. So you got to make them feel secure in their talent.
Yeah. What was it like working with Terence, Trent, D'Arby?
Oh, that was amazing. I mean, do you know what? I'm still in contact with him every day.
He's got a new name now, hasn't he?
Sananda Maitreya. Yeah, it was quite a while ago he changed it. Yeah, we're in contact every day on WhatsApp. He's performing for the first time in God knows how long, 25 years,
Wow.
in the UK in November. Yeah, in fact, the last date of his tour at Shepherd's Bush Empire, I think, is on November the 4th. And we have Hem 17 are playing in the same venue the following day.
Well, I was going to ask you. Yeah, I was going to ask you about your tour. But before I do that, I know we're skipping around a bit on this, but looking at an announcement yesterday, Heaven 17 have got a new single coming out on Friday.
That's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
how long ago was the last one?
10 years, something like that. Both myself and Glenn have been very busy doing. He does a lot of TV and film soundtrack stuff, and I do a load of 3D sound installation stuff. And it's hard to get in the same physical space at the same time. It's also hard to get in the same conceptual space at the same time. I mean, nowadays you can write remotely and exchange ideas. I'm not a big fan. I think being in the same room creates a different entity.
Yeah.
And so, if I'm being brutally honest, Glenn was the biggest issue. He didn't show any appetite for it. So I thought, I'll leave it, and I'll do whatever I do. He does whatever he does. We see each other all the time performing live. So, but then recently he started getting keen again and sending me stuff, and so I said, it wasn't quite in the right shape originally, so I said to him, look, I'm going to do some rearrangements of it to make it more Heaven 17. And that's what we did, and I mixed it and produced it, and it sounds great.
And is it going to be people on Spotify better get it as well?
Yeah, it's on all the digital platforms.
Fantastic.
On Friday.
Yeah, and have you got any radio stations agreed to play?
Yeah, the first play is going to be on Radio 6, I think, on Stuart McConey's show.
Oh, fantastic.
On Friday morning.
So the sound insulation stuff, I was reading about that. There's a couple of questions I've got about that. A soundscape artist. So basically the company itself does, you can probably say it better than me, but my understanding is it will go to, I don't know, a big art gallery or a museum, and it will do the sound, but in 3D, so you get it everywhere. Is that basically, have I got that right?
I mean, essentially we get commissioned to create immersive soundscapes. I mean, immersive is a word that's misused a lot nowadays, but we've been doing it for 25 years now. We started off with me and Vince Clarke from Erasure. Yeah. Vince has had to step back now. He unfortunately lost his wife, and he's just not in the right space at the moment. So it's just me and my colleague Chaz Stuke, and so we do all sorts of things from our bread and butter, I suppose, is like a lot of oral history kind of installations in museums together with composition. So there's one side to it, which is the compositional side. And then there's the other side is we also provide the kind of technology to put it out into three-dimensional space for you as well. So we've done stuff as big as the whole of the Millennium Bridge in London for the Olympics in 2012. We've done Trafalgar Square, Leicester Square. We've done work with the Royal Ballet in the Royal Opera House. So they're the kind of there's loads of them. If you go to illustriouscompany.co.uk, you can see the range of things we've done. But we also do things for wellbeing. We do kind of natural soundscapes. We do things that are only online, for instance. We do a lot of art gallery stuff. But what we insist on is we're not a kind of a service provider. It's not like, come to us and we'll, help you sell shit. And we have done some retail, but generally it's like you come to us for our artistic input and the composition and everything. I just need to plug the podcast because
yes, of course.
when you first start a podcast, it's hard to get the numbers up.
Yeah.
Even though I've already done a very successful one with 1.5 million listens and everything. This is more about the power of sound the underappreciated nature of sound in our environment, our mental environment, for healing, but it's also about those renegade people on the fringes. It's like outsider art for sound. So we're trying to be a bit more. We're trying to walk this tightrope between having enough popular people on or famous people on, so that people are drawn to it, and some of the people won't have heard of some of the guests. So any help we can get from people would be good. It's called Sound Power. It's on every podcast platform.
Well, I've listened to it so far, and I'll put a note about it on the show notes for this.
Great, thank you.
And it's I mean, is it a continuation of what you do? Well, it is in terms of the interviews and stuff like that. But as you say, it's got its own identity as well.
I just realised that's what I was more interested in than just getting whatever the latest, PR company wants to send to me. And I just thought, okay, let's wrap this up while the legacy of that podcast is intact.
Yeah.
I don't want it to just drift away into nothingness.
No. And just while we're on the subject of sound, and I know you put a note out fairly recently saying that you were a bit disappointed with the sound of a particular film that you went to see at the cinema.
Oh, yeah.
But we can just park that for a bit, because what I wanted to say was, it's not all about, things were better in my day, but in the 70s and 80s, my parents had a decent sound system. When I say that, they had a stereo. It was part of the furniture, and it was a big part of the house. You had your telly, your colour TV, and your stereo system with veneered veneered blockboard, it would have been then. And now, we're all, it's minimalist. We don't want that in the house. We just want, and this isn't me talking, we just want, a smart speaker. We don't get the luxury, I don't think, of having sound like we used to. And the other point I wanted to make on that, Martyn, was most of us listen to something like a streaming platform. So we're getting it digital. I keep hearing this thing about, if you listen to it on vinyl, you get more sound out of it to do with bytes and stuff like that. Now, how true is that?
Right. You've asked me.
Is this another podcast?
So, I can put it in a nutshell. I prefer the sound of vinyl, personally. It sounds richer. There's an automatic, natural kind of compression in the system which softens it and makes it sound more stuck together. It's not as detailed as digital, but a lot of the detail, not a lot, some of the detail is taken out with MP3 technology in particular. I am sponsored by a company called Monitor Audio, who are one of the top, they're up there with B&W and, that kind of level. So I know all about hi-fi. I used to be sponsored by Bowers and Wilkins, and, I work with hi-fi all the time. I work with different kinds of speakers all the time in the installations we do. I think there's a lot of nonsense talked about. I think it's all about how you consume music. Most people nowadays consume music on headphones. Most people consume them on headphones that don't cost very much. The headphones that I listen to coming on the bus to work every day cost 40 quid. And they sound fine for a lot of stuff. Not for the, if I want to listen to something in detail, I'll wear the more expensive stuff and yada, yada, yada. It's a moot point. I'm not a gear fetishist at all. I think it's more about the content, because what happens with auditory processing is, and the people who designed MP3 understood this, is that the brain can fill in the gaps when you're listening to stuff. So if you think about, I don't know, when back in the day you'd listen to, I don't know, a cassette.
Yeah.
in the car. Like, a car's not an ideal environment to listen to anything. You listen to some crappy cardboard speakers that are built into the dashboard, and the cassette isn't the best medium. But if you turn it up loud enough, it has the correct emotional impact. You might not be able to hear the detail, but no, you don't need to hear all the detail in pop music a lot of the time. You'd rather it sounded kind of stuck together. However, my view on it is, as a creator, I want it to sound as good as it possibly can, because that means it'll sound good on every system. If you listen to things like, for me, recording technology was at its peak from the mid-70s through to mid-80s, because it was all analog, the best components at the top end.
Yeah.
Analog tape, everything. Listen to things like, Earth, Wind and Fire records. They sound like they were made yesterday. On every system, they sound amazing. Trevor Horn knew this. All his stuff sounds incredible still. Slave to the Rhythm made me want to stop producing records, because I thought, I'm never going to make anything that sounds as good as that. And it sounds great on every system. Long-winded answer to your question, but I think people can become too fetishistic about it all. And they get very kind of snobby.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
It's like, oh well, it's whatever 328 MP3, not 192, and it's like, oh yeah, we got to have 96 kilohertz. No, you can't. You can't hear the top 40 kilohertz.
Yeah.
It's a lot of it's bollocks.
Yeah.
Frankly.
Yeah.
By the way, I've got a tip for people. And I'm not sponsored by them, although I'd like to be. Sonos, I've brought out recently, and I've got one at home. I got it on recommendation, actually. A little speaker, it's about that big, round speaker. Can't remember what it's called now. Era, I think it's called. To have on, music in the background when I'm at home, just off my phone. It's the best. It's like magic. It's the best sounding thing I've ever had in a home system, ever.
Oh, right.
I've had a lot of different things. It's incredible. I strongly recommend it. It's like 200 quid or something. Incredible. I definitely didn't expect that, because you think Sonos, it sounds like a marketing thing, right? Strongly recommend
Interesting. I'm very conscious of time, Martyn. It's been a great conversation. There's loads of stuff I haven't touched on, like politics, like Sheffield Wednesday.
Oh, God. Thank God we run out of time. If you want to do a part 2, I'm happy to.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah. All right, well, let's do that. But one thing I would like to sort of round up on, and this is taken as an example from your own one, the smash hits. Are you happy to do that? Right.
Oh, smash hits.
Yeah. So just for listeners' benefit, on Electronically Yours, Martyn's podcast, he usually ends up, I think he always ends up asking people a number of questions, which I think that are designed to, so favourite book, favourite film, designed to actually question why. And there's a lot to it. And I think at the same time, it gives listeners something to sort of take away as well, which is good.
It's a different kind of insight into the people I'm interviewing.
So without further ado, Martyn, favourite book. What's your favourite book and why?
Clockwork Orange. Anthony Burgess. Fell in love with the idea of an alternate. I love his writing anyway, but fell in love with the idea of an alternate, a completely made-up language, Nadsat. At the time I read it first, I was a teenager, so I could relate to the kind of transgressional nature of the story, and also the moral core to the story about free will.
Thank you. Favourite film?
I can't say Clockwork Orange again. 2001.
Okay.
Another Kubrick film.
Yeah.
Changed my life.
Yeah. Favourite synthesizer?
This one. The System 100.
And how old is that?
Well, that's mid-70s. Wow. That's the one we wrote Being Boiled on.
Is it? And do you use that live?
No, it's too delicate to do that. I do use the Korg 700S, which I played, which is that. Where is it? There. That. For live, because I've got another one of those, and we tour that for just to do Being Boiled as a climax of the show.
And what, if any, epiphany did you reach during your life that has sort of had a sudden impact and changed the way that you either led your life or viewed your life and the world?
Well, two of them really. One was that drones gig, and the other one, I suppose, was the split of the Human League. I mean, that could have gone either way, couldn't it? I could have shrunk back into my shell and gone, this isn't for me, and gone back to computer stuff and had a normal life, or I took a 50% wage cut to join the Human League, as did Ian Marsh. So it was an article of faith, and so that was a decision moment. Of course, my parents and Ian's parents, presumably, my parents said, "Oh, Martyn, why don't you get a proper job? Work in a bank." Of course, all the banks are shut now, so I get the last laugh.
Yeah, fantastic. We could probably end, actually. It'd be great to the Human Heaven 17 have just been on tour, and you're doing another load of gigs very shortly, aren't you?
Yeah. In November, we're doing a tour called Sound with Vision.
Yeah.
And the unique sales point of this one, normally it's like, oh, it's the 40th anniversary of Luxury Gap or whatever, but this is, we're playing our hits. We're playing some songs that we don't play very often, if at all, including the new single, and probably a couple of other new songs. But the main thing is that there's going to be a filming of a documentary. So at the same time, and of course it is about us, but it's also looking at it through the lens of the fan, and this notion of, we've always had, and I don't know if it's just us or everybody from this kind of period, but we've always had a load of kind of super fans. We call them the diehards, who follow us around and have done ever since we started performing live in 98, I think it was. And they didn't all come to every gig, except for one person called Sumo, who has now been to 254 concerts.
Wow.
Yeah. He's not been to everyone, but damn
254. Near. That's amazing.
Yeah. And he's always in the front row. Yep.
Yeah.
And there are lots of people who have done more than 100. There's probably a dozen or so, and there are literally another 100 or so that have done over 50. And so it's this kind of idea that, I mean, we do make an effort to service our fans.
Yeah.
We do interact with them live. We do make an effort to speak to them after the gigs. We talk to them online, but we like that kind of interaction. So we're celebrating that. But there's also this phenomenon of people in the later stages, pretty bluntly, in the second half of their lives, trying to relive their youth by following a band as though they're following a football team.
Yeah.
Because if I think about the number of football games I've been to see, it would be way over 500-600, maybe 1,000. So, if you look at it like that, it's not as mad as it sounds, because it's also a generation that's, maybe it's the last generation in the UK that has has some disposable income because of the growth of property prices and all that stuff over decades off their hands, empty nesters, whatever. And, so it's a community, and community is a rare thing nowadays. So, all the above. It's going to be a documentary in a kind of style of, I suppose, like a kind of Martyn Ware style.
Right.
Kind of sociological, quirky, about celebrating the fans and the people.
Notice that you're playing at Sheffield, so we're going to try and get some tickets for that. That should be good.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Well, if you can't, or if it's sold out, let me know. I'll get in.
Oh, okay, thanks. It was something I didn't realise actually at the time before I started doing the research was that Heaven 17 didn't really do any touring when you first came out. No, you were a studio band.
Yeah, because essentially we lost. I mean, we didn't have to pay it, but I mean, unrecouped. You had to pay quite a lot of money to get onto tours at the time. We did Susan the Banshees tours, Pere Ubu, Iggy Pop, and we got into more and more and more debt, which again was an engine which drove the split. And we just thought we'll concentrate on what we're good at,
Yeah.
So that's why we decided to do the studio thing,
Yeah.
And
well, Martyn, it's been a great conversation. Thank you ever so much for your time. Learned so much, and
my pleasure.
I put the details about the Sound Power podcast and the book, which I can thoroughly recommend. I mean, it's
thank you.
I'll tell you what I like about the book. Yes, it's an autobiography, and we learn a lot about you, but also we were talking about that generation again, weren't we? It does take you back, and I think even if you're not from Sheffield, whatever, you'll find it fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I when I started writing it, I decided I wanted it to sound conversational.
Yeah.
Like you were having a natter with someone, like the podcast, really. And I was commissioned to write 90,000 words, and I wrote 130,000 because I thought, well, I'll just write too much, and they can cut out the bits that they didn't cut out any of it. They just said, no, it's fine. They didn't sub-edit it at all.
So you didn't? Did you have any help writing it at all?
No.
So all pen by yourself?
I wrote every single word. By the way, it's on. It's an audiobook as well. And reading an audiobook of that length, I wouldn't recommend. I will never do it again, ever. I'll get some professional actor to do it. Thanks very much. It was very, very hard work.
Yeah,
but it's quite interesting hearing it in my voice. So.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, you mentioned that I think one of the recent podcasts you had listened to. I think no, it wasn't a recent podcast. You mentioned that you listened to something like 200 autobiographies on Audible.
Yeah.
While you were writing, or just before, as a sort of form of research.
Yeah, no, I think that's too many. But I did become obsessed with the voice, the sound of the voice of the person whose life story it was. If somebody else reads it, it didn't work. It's interesting.
I find, I've gone back to reading books. I find that with audiobooks, I listen to lots of podcasts, but I find with audiobooks, if I start listening to them at night, I fall asleep. So I miss half of it. But what I found, this book. That's
how I use them.
Oh, do you? What, to go to sleep? Yeah. This book here, for example, you can see all the. What I normally say to myself is, after a couple of pages, Bob, what have you actually learned from those 2 pages? Because very often you can be thinking, oh, better go and have a cup of coffee, and you've read half a page. You don't actually know what you've read. Yeah. So,
I have got a recommendation for people who are interested in this. I don't pay attention when I'm listening to audiobooks. I deliberately let it just seep into me.
Do you? What, subconsciously?
Yeah. I'm not doing other things at the same time, unless it's walking or something, or running. But because I like the idea of I trust my brain to pick up on the interesting shit. Plus, if I get to the end of something and I feel I missed something, or I enjoyed it so much, I'll just listen to it again.
Yeah.
And do the same thing. So for me, it can seep in over time. It's a different experience to reading a book. Reading a book, you go, did I understand that? And you read the same paragraph again. And it's like, to me, it's too bitty. I don't have the patience for that. I prefer the continuum.
Okay, Martyn, well, I'll let you go. Thanks very much again for coming on. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.